the state level, just and realizing it's just one measure.
Right.
But on an MSA, you know, kind of where do you guys stand now?
Well, currently, this is my first year, so
And the MSA scores have not come out.
no, they won't come out until sometime in June. So that would be for me,
The measure.
my measure of, okay, what has really worked for us, or things we need to continue to change. When you come into this school, as a principal, you have your big vision, but you have to get the whole body to buy into that. And so that's why it was so important to get that mission and vision. Currently, as we share with all of our parents, that we are a school that's in improvement. And as a principal, knowing the staff is there, we have a great staff and they work hard. And we have great students. And so I can't speak to what took place, but we don't have to be in this place of improvement because we have the resources. I think it's just a matter of how we're going to get there. And that was part of that shift for everyone. One, how was I going to communicate that and how they were going to buy into that. And so that report card for me, just part of it, because I've seen the full picture. But when it comes on in and say, where are we, how well did we do on that state assessment, and what do we need to continue to work on? I know one of the questions that was presented on behalf of the group here was, well, what are some of the changes that are taking place? And part of that, again, is when we look at data, is understanding, again, what is the data, what is going on? Why did the school get improvement for 2 years? How did we avoid not going into a third year? And so we had to really uncover some things in terms of accountability for myself, for teachers. How do we get students to hold themselves accountable? The communication between parents. We had to make these established by choice, of course. Teachers have ways that they share the instruction in the classroom with parents, so that parents are aware and can come in and assist. And so that's something else that we're working on. Our PTA, again, our parents' involvement increased. But more importantly, knowing your students. See, you can go in as a teacher and have this great curriculum that's been originated by the school system. But then at the end of the day, each year you're getting a different set of students. And so you have to know their learning styles, and some of that requires some communicating with the parents. You have to know the content that you're teaching. You have to know the best practices, and that's what, one, I go in the classroom every day. That was a shift. Every day. What is it that you're doing? Because if you're telling me this child is struggling, then what are we doing about it? And we need to speak to that. I don't want you to tell me, well, my class, what is this parent's child, what is this child? And so part of that is capturing that data outside of just here's a test. It is, well, where are your conference notes? Did this child read to you? Did you check for fluency? Could that be a problem? Or is it just comprehension? Do we need to put in another, Ms. Carter brought it to RTI. So we really had to focus solidly on instruction and just that whole accountability and having those conversations. So we have conversations often, and I'm in the classrooms every day. And so every day I can see what you're teaching. I can see, okay, well, I see your children got to that. What are you going to do now? Or your children struggle with that. And normally they have a plan already. So to that degree, that's been a shift for the staff. And so for students, they actually are excited about coming. They're like, oh, I want to come. So now we're just not teaching, say, do this sheet, do that. Okay, so what else teacher generated are you coming up with to get the students engaged? Students are now leading conversations. Our kindergartners are leading the morning meetings. Our kindergartners are now engaging in their own discussions. Our teachers are now collaborating, our sister office, collaborating together and saying, listen, this child came from your class last year. I noticed this is happening this year. So I think it speaks volumes when a teacher can speak to each child and bring about instruction that addresses the needs of each child. And if it gets to the point where that teacher is like, oh my gosh, I'm not quite sure what to do, you have Ms. Carr and the special ed teacher say, listen, what RTI, what response to intervention can I put in place? And so we have that, and that is something new that's being brought in, where you have your different levels to say, okay, sir, your son is here. This is what we're doing for your child here. See, you don't have to worry about this. They're here. This is what I'm going to do for your child here. And you hold that teacher accountable when you have those conversations. And so the accountability is not measured, because the data that you saw wasn't a surprise to me. It might have been a surprise to them, but it wasn't, because I've been monitoring and holding them accountable that whole time. So I have in my mind where we're going to be for MSA. But again, that is just one piece. So even just for parents, that's just a piece when you see that to a school. You want to be able to look at the culture. What are the children saying? What are the other parents saying about that? About that school? Is it about the children, what's best for them, or is it just about this test? Do you hear about a test in January and March, or is it just about learning the whole way through? And basically, we're just at the marathon and we're saying, let's just run it. You've been preparing the whole time, you've been doing this work, it's nothing new. You just have to run in to show them that you've been trained for this all along, and then after the marathon, the race is still not over. We got to prepare for the next one. So it's just what our students are preparing for. So again, middle school, wherever the children are feeding into, Thomas Johnson, or if it's in a different area, whatever that feeder school, they are getting solid students that are reading at grade level or above, that are, the math problems aren't, one of the common core, one of those things is perseverance. It's not giving up. It's not on that problem, and then they're like, I can't figure it out, and then the teacher say, okay, here's the answer, or you just get a 0. But implementing strategies to help them get through it. And so, it's so many, it's those things that have been a gradual progression that I'm giving you in a lump sum. But me going into classrooms, holding teachers accountable, teachers holding themselves accountable along with students, and them knowing each student is the beginning, along with, how we change the curriculum in terms of project-based and not just sheets and little, questions and assessments, and getting them more engrossed in work and excited about learning.
So one final question, I know I'm asking a lot, but this is really helpful, and I'm gratified to see how the progress and strides that you've made this year. The advanced kids, because when I started working in the task force 5-6 years ago, I had a number of parents come to me and say, my kid's bored at Glendale. Very bright, they do well in the class, but they're bored, they come home bored, they don't like school anymore. So, and I understand part of the dynamics, because, when we look at, we got to move the basic to proficient, we need to move the proficient to advanced, and, for a long time, Glendale had pretty small percentages that were advanced, so it's like, well, we don't really need to worry about the advanced kids because they're already where we want them to be. But for the advanced kids, they want to keep advancing, and so I'm just wondering kind of what the philosophy is for really supporting the kids that are already where you want them to be, challenging within a classroom that has real variation in how kids are performing.
From special education perspective, it's more of a top-up approach. Every day these teachers are teaching to the advanced students through the problem-based tasks, through the collaboration, and what as much as we put the challenge on us, the ESOL teachers, the English second language teachers, the special ed teachers, to get us to the advanced. So they start teaching on advanced now, as opposed to before we were teaching to the basic. And hope, building up from there. Now we're starting to teach at the advanced level. They're doing author studies. Third grade right now is reading E.B. White. So we're starting up here, and as Marshall saying to me and to my team, get them up. You don't have a choice, So that's the difference. The problem-based task, you're asking kids to break down how many items you can get at the grocery store. If you have $15 and this is on sale, you have this coupon. So we're meeting actually the advanced learners first and building everybody else up behind it.
And this is a shift.
Oh, yeah. When she came out, I was actually a primary teacher, and so was the other woman that's working with me, and we got flipped. And more or less that was the task that was put to us, was this is where the teachers are going to be teaching, get them there. So it's very much a top-up approach at this point.
So I have a question that was very similar. Is it differentiated learning specifically? And so are you identified towards, so the student is even in advanced range, but they have already mastered those skills. What happens then? Do they identify those where that child is and teach them where they are, or is it kind of just
I had a teacher, but it is differentiated, which you all can speak to what you do in classroom.
So to address your question, so we have this advanced reader that you can find on the test. And so that's what we're doing, is we're doing the author study. We're bringing in our 5th graders reading Langston Hughes. There are Charles Dickinson, they're reading texts that you would never imagine. And 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders reading, I didn't read that till I was in high school. So challenging them, they can do the skills, but see if they can do it with a higher, more advanced test. And we're, with Ms. Marshall's push, we're also selecting better tests. Why are we just using that book? Because we have a class set, or is there a purpose behind using it? So it's building that learner, and we also allowing kids to have choice. These kids this year will tell you everything they want to do and how we should do it. And that comes from Ms. Marshall making that culture. The kids have a say in what they get to do. We get the final say to make sure that but they're getting their input, and I think that goes back to what he's saying. They're more engaged now because they're getting a say. They're not just doing this worksheet, and I gotta come home and do another worksheet. They're getting input, and that makes a huge difference to those accelerated learners, that they get the freedom of choice.
And that's why we differentiate, so that we can meet the individual students' needs. Because oftentimes we just focus on the kids who are struggling, but we don't want to forget those advanced learners, like you said, so we need to see where we can push them. And that's definitely the change in the focus that we've been doing this year.
And like speaking to the math, like in the problem-based task, there may be different types of tasks that the students are doing. So there's a task one that's created, that may be, for, if I really want to push my kids, that I know to a higher level, then they'll have task one. And then I'll have task two, which is still on an advanced level, but it may be just for a certain group of students that I put together. So it's still tailored and it's still differentiating to still be able to meet the needs of all learners.
This technology, like use an iPad and that kind of stuff, what is the focus in which students are going to do that kind of technology?
Okay, so, and then I'll answer your question right after. In terms of technology, we started with the iPad, and each class, 3rd through 5th grade, has one iPad, and we all have our laptops. And so the mobile labs, the teachers can check out. So, for example, I had a 2nd grade team, they were doing research on results class, they were doing research on different flags. And so they checked out for each day. So she had them check out the mobile lab. So the teachers are able to use that. They're able to use the iPads and centers currently. And we have 2 or 3 desktops in each classroom. And so in terms of technology, we're trying to get more in. And so we'll get more in each year. But the issue with that is that you have to apply for grants if you want even more grants. You have to apply for grants if you want more because they cost. The budget doesn't lend itself to pay almost over $100,000 for iPads for each student in the building. And so it's creative spending in terms of where do we start. So we start at intermediate and then we'll go down. We even look at Kindles. And so that goes with the other question that came on the list, what about partnerships? And so we're thinking creatively, how do we get our businesses here to support us, because when we've written letters and we haven't been able to get that just yet, but that support will help us because the system doesn't have the money to just give it to us. We're not Title I, so we don't get additional money to do those things. We're not under any other grant within the school system where some middle schools may have iPads, so we really have to be creative about how we're able to do that. So on my budget alone, I was able to purchase maybe like another class set of iPads. So it's like a slow progression. But then it's also, okay, so we want to address different chapter books, maybe I need to go to Kindle, which is a cheaper cost. So right now it's constantly thinking, getting feedback from teachers and parents about what they're really looking for and the best way I can make that happen. So if that means I can get one iPad in each class, that's a start. Then maybe if I can get some Kindles in my lower grade for this small group so they can access those chapter books, that's fine, because our kindergartners, we're exposing them to that kind of text as well. So it's a slow progression of technology, but we are doing much better with that, and each year it'll increase.
And each class does have an Interwrite or a smart board. Every teacher has an Interwrite or smart board in their classroom.
And a projector and a visualizer.
Yes.
And we're actually ahead of a lot of the other schools in the county in terms of our technology.
And I think it's not just we have it to use it, we're incorporating it into the learning. Like, this is what you're gonna have to be able to do, whether it's projects, we have to create PowerPoints, we have to create a video. So we're teaching them how to use it as well. And that goes, like even in college tours, some kids make these elaborate videos to show it, and where other kids were using poster boards, and kids, they're like, oh, I want to do that next time. So like, they're learning along with us.
Can I ask one? Here,
One question.
I
real quick, I wanted to propose a scenario for you, Ms. Marshall.
Okay.
If you're in an elevator with a Fairwood resident who has a child in a grade and is looking at the private schools, has looked at Glendale, what key points would you want to convey to that parent in making a decision whether or not to go to your school or maybe an alternative school?
I would say some key points. One is that we care about our students. That's the first thing. And I think about it as a parent for me, especially when, I was making that decision where I want my child to go. And I want her to go to a safe and nurturing environment where teachers care. So that's the first thing. The next is things that we think about that, like the college readiness and that exposure. That is something very different. And I don't know if parents really, they think about that like, wow, maybe not only in middle school, but a third grade can really, so this is a thought. As a third grader, I'm coming in, I'm at Glendale, Orange University of Pennsylvania. Next year, I'm going to Columbia University and New York University. That means that in 2 years, I visited 3 universities. And then my third year as a 5th grader, I'm going to go to a different university. So if I never, ever have an experience to do a college tour, I visited 4. Not only did I visit, I had to then do research because then I had an assignment. So then we have that. Then we have, which will be more of the technology. So when we get, like, as a kindergarten, your kindergarten will have a Kindle. Well, what are they doing with Kindle? Well, they're going to be have access to those chapter books and leading those discussions with the teacher guiding them. Or you will have that iPad because there are some private schools who may not have an iPad, but they'll have that information as well. In addition to, we differentiate and we have those resources. So the thing about it is, because I'm familiar with private schools as well, and I won't say anything wrong about that because for different reasons, parents may decide, but I would rather be for maybe religious reasons and not that the teacher, the school is not meeting the needs of my child or not advancing them. And so that's when we talk about the curriculum, bringing in your children reading chapter books. Our secondary students are Charlotte's Web. There are some students out there in the United States that maybe have not even heard of Charlotte's Web. And that's a complex text. You have our students in 3rd grade doing research on Charles Dickinson. That's not on the curriculum, but the skills are, but the level of text isn't. So it is pushing our students. So we're pushing our students to really be college and career ready, where we're exposing them to universities. We're differentiating the lessons to meet their needs. We're challenging them. Our students, and a part of that reading is a lot of more writing and research. So wow, my child now is going to know how to do a research. So some things our children they weren't doing in some instances, in schools, period. So here, this is what we do. So, and I have a way of accessing. So you have a page where I can access to see what my children are doing. So there are things that some parents may not know are accessible to them, just not knowing, but these things are accessible in Glendale. So I think when you think of, sometimes you think of private, my child's on an accelerated curriculum, college preparatory, or oh my God, they're going to go to this country. So that's the next thing. Like they don't even know about that one yet. But that's the next thing. Like if you get, we have parents that want their children to expose to Spanish, so we have that every Wednesday. Our children are able to take a Spanish class, and so the next point, maybe not this year, we're working, but to go to Spain. But you have to build those partnerships. So then that's the next thing. So we have to think out of the box in order to get there. So that is still mastering those skills without just at the desk and doing it. But how we get them immersed in other ways of learning socially, do the character building, but taking it to that next level. So when that parent's like, wow, you do that? I think sometimes teachers, parents, not in this Fairwood, think public limited, because we do have limited resources, but you got to be creative about how you're going to make it happen. And you have to have a staff that's like, hey, we're willing to go with you. We see it, what do we need to do? This is Saturday, 11 o'clock. We have one preparing for a wedding in a couple of months. We have one whose child is in basketball. We have two single women in here on a Saturday before me and setting up. So it's those individuals also on board that will be able to allow those things to happen. So having a conversation with a parent, or any parent is like, what is Glendale doing? What do they have to offer differently? It would be that conversation with them. And, you know, it's not in our policy, and it's something that I would definitely, just for policy and procedure, but I'm even open to, and if one of the school system says to have a tour day for parents who are interested. Because sometimes you just want to see, you know, what is it like here? You know, or especially if you have a kindergarten, that's why we want to do the kindergarten program, to be able to say, well, can we get acclimated first? Because it's a scary thought to see 400 and something people, and everybody's there, and the parents are crying, taking pictures, and oh my baby's kindergarten, and it just too is overwhelming. So we have to think out of the box and do things differently to still meet the needs of our students, and it'll reflect in the data. So that's pretty much what I would share.
I need to run. I've got family here who's wondering like why I'm going to a meeting this morning. But I just wanted to say thank you all for coming here. I mean, it is a Saturday, and it's pretty amazing that you're willing to do that for a group of folks that don't even necessarily attend your school. I also want to thank the task force for doing this. But, you know, I think this community has been waiting for a principal.
We've been waiting.
So this is really wonderful to hear, because this has been a big struggle for this community for a long time. So I want to say thanks.
Thank you for coming.
So, this group is now representing 400 homes that are in Fairwood who constantly stops on your call, Steve, to ask them a million questions. So, what can we do as a community? We are very active to help you all succeed at Glendale.
Well, one thing that I would like to do, and the time is, the school year is almost over. I can't believe that. But I wouldn't mind having something here again, whether it be our PTA or whether if Fairwood has a community day and coming out and right, and just speaking, because I'll tell you, I had this really audacious goal for myself when I first came in. I'm going to come to the Fairwood community and create that community, and I'm going to go and look at the addresses, and I'm going to say hello to everyone. I say hello, right? And I'm going to get in my car and just not say hello, Miss Marshall. But yes, I don't mind coming to the
Community Day is June 23rd.
June 23rd. Well, write it down, please. I'll be there. Okay. So whatever capacity you need with this to speak and share.
And I know most of us work for major corporations, and I work for General Dynamics. I will write something to try to get money from General Dynamics.
It's a great, I mean, it's a good resource. I think people would be willing to support the school. I have children in elementary school, maybe those attending school. But it doesn't mean I don't have, the reason I'm here this morning, I have a real interest and heart for our schools. And, you know, our children go there for various reasons. But I would love to see our public schools do well. So I think I probably share a sentiment with a lot of other people, whether your children go there or not. You know, there's something that we can do. You know, if one family can sponsor and give you an iPad, or we can come together, each enclave and give you an iPad. You know, there must be something that we can do as a community that would help. So I mean, that's on us.
And I would certainly appreciate it, but I definitely would extend myself, and I'm sure that Brenda and my staff would do the same in terms of building that relationship. I know that, and I'm not quite sure the depth of it, but for whatever reason that parents have decided, I just don't want it to be because Glendale can't meet the needs of my child. For whatever reason is a reason, I just don't want to do that. I want our parents to be able to say, no, that is a great school. That is a school that is community oriented with Fairwood and the Glendale community. I want parents to be able to say, you know, oh my gosh, the choice of field trips are outstanding. They are open to customer service when you come in the building. It's just phenomenal. The teachers are professional, dressed. You know, students are in their uniform. If a child doesn't have one, they have resources to make that happen. The academics is just incredible. Oh my gosh, we sat in class and they were structured. There wasn't any classroom management problem because there was teaching going on. So whatever the reason is, I just want to make a shift from the reason not being Glendale isn't teaching the students, or Glendale is just a subpar school, because we're really not. The teachers there go over and beyond, and I'm wowed by them every time I go, and I get excited when I see things going on in class or when they share with me their lesson plans, but it's been a shift. So we're shifting, now we just kind of let the community know where the shift is. And this, it started here and then a community day.
I know your mission and vision, and I read everything, and I read a lot of mission and vision on different public schools. What should I need to tell other people that why I go and why I sending my children to London elementary school compared to other schools?
Other school, you mean like a
Yeah, one of them, see, my children are in private school right now. I sent one of my child to public school 2-3 years ago, and he was in the national level too. And then the character, he was deviating from his character to a low level. So I took him, I don't have money, but I sent him into private school. Now I'm planning to my children to when they elementary school. And then because still in my mind, what should I, if something happens to the character, I have to pull him back to private school. So there are a lot of neighbors and a lot of my friends that are asking why you send me to public school again. You know, so what should I tell them? Like, you know.
She goes, Glendale is a wonderful school. She's in the first grade. I love Miss Washington. Because we were afraid too, but the elementary school, I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. Miss Washington does a wonderful job. And her staff, they are professional. When Caleb's in the first grade, and when I walk in that classroom, it's like looking at third graders. Mr. Roy, he doesn't even have to use the laptop. He has his children using the laptop when he does his information and his programs that he has in first grade. I'm not disappointed. I'm very happy. You gotta work with junior high. I'm telling you, they need to same skills because they, when